War is often spoken in the language of soldiers. Uniforms, medals, marching boots, steel and smoke. But beneath every battle, beneath every flag, there are hands that never lifted a rifle, yet held the world together. This is their story. The civilians whose quiet strength shaped victory. Not with bullets, but with sacrifice, sweat, and unshakable spirit. When the world cracked open in 1939, cities did not empty. Factories did not fall silent. Schools did not stop teaching. Life, in its stubborn, fragile way, continued. Because ordinary people refused to let it die. Mothers kissed sons goodbye. Fathers watched trains disappear into fog, and then turned toward fields and workshops and offices, carrying burdens new enough to ache, yet ancient enough to recognize. War demanded soldiers, but war survived because civilians would not break. In Britain, while Spitfires duelled in skies burning orange at dusk, the ground war was fought in kitchen gardens and factories humming day and night. Women rolled up sleeves and stepped into steel mills, shipyards, munitions plants. Sparks fell like stars from welding torches, and engines roared to life behind the hands of those who had never touched machinery before. Rosa the Riveter became a symbol, but she stood for millions. Women in dungarees, with grease beneath their nails, building wings, rivets, shells, steel hearts for an army thousands of miles away. Their strength powered flight, their sweat armored fleets, their patience fed nations under rationing. Stretching flour and sugar like magicians, keeping families warm on hope and thin coal. Across oceans, in American towns dusted with prairie wind or lit by neon, small businesses stuck stamps on every package. War bonds filled the pockets of schoolchildren who emptied piggy banks not for toys, but for troops. Victory gardens bloomed behind modest fences. Carrots, beans, tomatoes rising like tiny rebellions against hunger. Farmhands rose before dawn, harvesting wheat and corn to feed armies. Train conductors hauled supplies through nights without sleep, knowing one delayed carriage might cost lives on distant shores. War was not won in trenches alone. It was grown in soil, baked in kitchens, hammered into form by calloused palms. And then there were those who gave without choice. The refugees who walked roads choked with dust and sorrow, carrying whatever pieces of their lives they could hold. Mothers shielding infants beneath battered shawls. Brothers holding each other upright as fire lit the skyline behind them. They lost homes, fields, photographs. Yet they carried something far heavier. Memory. They bore witness, and witness is the root of justice. In besieged cities, Warsaw, Leningrad, Manila, civilians became walls. Bakers kneaded bread under shell fire. Doctors stitched torn flesh while ceilings shook. Teachers whispered arithmetic and poems in cellars lit by candle flame, reminding frightened children that even amidst rubble, knowledge and hope could bloom. A violinist in Leningrad played as bombs fell, bow trembling but never stopping, because music too is defiance. And then, in the shadows, quiet heroes emerged. Librarians guarding banned books beneath floorboards, monks hiding children behind monastery walls, merchants slipping food to the starving beneath folded coats. A tailor sewed false identities into jacket linings, each stitch a gamble against execution. A nurse smuggled medicine in hollow soaps, knowing one bar discovered meant death. They carried life in pockets and aprons and trembling hands. And because of them, thousands breathed another day. Some never left their homes at all. Yet their courage stood tall. Families opened doors to strangers hunted by regime and hatred, whispering, "Stay here, you are safe," even as boots marched outside. They hid pilots, escaped prisoners, families fleeing extermination. Ordinary people, farmers, carpenters, grocers, became bulwarks against cruelty with nothing but kindness as armor. They burned no banners, shot no bullets, but history will never know how many futures survived, because someone lit a lantern in the night and welcomed the fearful inside. Far across the seas, in places war barely acknowledged, civilians worked in silence. Telegraph operators tapped out coded messages across fragile lines stretched over mountains and deserts. Railway workers kept trains running through sabotage and fear. Miners dug deep for coal that fueled ships and factories, deep enough that day never touched their faces. Yet they dreamed of sunlight, breaking war's long winter. And in fields stained by battles no map would mark, gravediggers laid the fallen to rest with dignity, when no one else could. They whispered prayers over nameless bodies, and planted small wooden crosses where memory would otherwise vanish. Even mercy, quiet and understated, shapes victory. War took their sleep, their comfort, their certainty. It asked them to ration food, save metal scraps, walk to work, switch off lights at dusk, live in blackout shadows, listen to radios crackle with news that could shatter hope with a single sentence. Yet every day they rose, they worked, they endured. A victory parade lasts a day. Their resilience lasted years. And when peace finally returned, when soldiers marched home through confetti and cheers, civilians swept the floors, mended torn towns, rebuilt schools brick by brick. They found ways to laugh again, to plant orchards where trenches once scarred the earth, to hang curtains over windows that had seemed too much darkness. War taught them fear, but peace asked them for faith, and they gave it. History remembers the generals, the battles, the flags raised on hillsides. But beneath every flag stands a million unseen hands. Civilians are the spine of a nation, the breath between gunshots, the heartbeat under rubble, the quiet thread that holds a world from unraveling. The war could not have been won without them. Victory did not march. It endured. It waited in bakery lines, bent over factory belts, whispered lullabies in bomb shelters, planted seeds in scarred soil, held trembling fingers through nights thick with sirens. They were the steady rhythm beneath chaos. They were the home that soldiers fought to return to. They were the war's silent backbone and its quiet triumph. Their names did not fill monuments. Their uniforms were aprons, overalls, smocks and patched coats. But listen closely. The echo of their strength rings through peace like a hymn. It reminds us that heroism has many faces, some without medals, some without graves, some simply holding on so others would not fall. War was their burden. Peace was their gift. And memory is our duty. Fade to quiet breath. A door opens. Morning sunlight spills across a kitchen table. Life, fragile and priceless, begins again.